Hey guys, Weeby News here. So today I'm going to be giving my review for Danganronpa 3 Despair Side Episode 3, and I have to say I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a really good start to the despair of the series. So without further ado, let's begin. So the episode opens up with Hajime expressing how much he wishes he had a talent and how much he wishes he could attend the Real Hope Speak Academy as he walks begrudgingly past the 77th class. And in this episode we get a quick bit of character development for Hajime and Natsume Kuzuryu, and I really did enjoy it. I feel like the character development and especially the despair side has been really quick but really efficient at the same time, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The next scene opens up with Hajime dwelling on that line that Tengen stated to him saying do not fear normalcy, and then in which Natsume walks up to him and discusses her love for Hope Speak Academy with him as well. They both share some similarities in the way that they both really desire talent, and they feel that they need that to define them in a way. With Natsume, it has to do with her big brother, which is of course Fuyuhiko, and she states later in the episode that she feels like she'll be left behind if she does not gain a super high school level talent. This is why I believe she introduces herself as the super high school level little sister. I think she made up this talent as a coping mechanism for herself to try and convince her own self that she's not going to get left behind by her brother. Although I don't think Fuyuhiko would leave her side because of her lack of talent, in her mind it obviously means that no talent means that she can no longer stand beside her brother. I think she believes that if she doesn't become successful like Fuyuhiko, that he'll somehow forget her with all the work that he has to do becoming the next big head of the family. But moving on, she mentions that she's not like the rest of the reserve course students and would do whatever it takes to get into the main course. She then goes on to say, I bet if someone in the main course were to quit, I could fill their space. Like a certain girl with freckles who I hate maybe, and in this she is of course referring to Mihiru. Then when she states this, Sato shows up, who is Mihiru's friend from the reserve course students. She takes Natsume's comments as a direct threat to Mihiru and gets very overprotective of Mihiru in this conversation. And honestly, throughout the entire episode as well. The argument continues on, and they both mention that they were all in the photography club together in junior high. And once Mihiru shows up, it becomes apparent to me that Natsume is more than likely just jealous of her talents. I'm sure the acceptance letters into Hope Speak Academy were presented to every student around the same time, so I'm sure Natsume heard about her brother and Mihiru getting accepted into the 77th class at the same time, and with Natsume already feeling jealous of Mihiru, I definitely think it ate her up inside that Mihiru was going to be in the same class as her brother. And I think she probably already felt inferior to her brother for having such a good talent, so once her brother and Mihiru got accepted into Hope Speak Academy, I think that might have been what triggered her initial obsession. But the fight eventually gets out of hand, and it looks as if Natsume is about to punch Sato, and that is when Mihiru leads Sato out of the room, trying to be a good friend and keep the peace. They both step out into the hallway together, and Sato mentions to Mihiru that she's the hope of everyone in the photography club. She also mentions this line, which I think might be a little bit of foreshadowing. She states, some days your photos will spread all around the world. Which, if you guys remember, there's that picture of Sonia speaking in front of an army of Monokuma heads with Mihiru taking pictures of her in the background, most likely using those pictures to spread despair or propaganda throughout the world. So I was thinking that maybe this line was meant to reference that picture. But in this episode, it does seem as if Sato has a very big obsession with Mihiru. I honestly couldn't tell if this was like a romantic obsession with her or if it was just that she was her only friend. It almost seems as if it is like a one-sided romantic obsession, because we see in Super Danganronpa 2 that Sato, well, at least is implied to be friends with Sayonji, Mikan, and Ibuki as well, and they all have super high school level talents, but she doesn't seem obsessed with them. So I'm not completely sure if it can just be passed off as like another character with an obsession for hope. But that's just my personal view of it right now. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this character. Then we see Fuyuhiko and Peko having a conversation in an alley talking about Natsume and Peko being worried about her safety. It seems like Fuyuhiko has the same stance in this anime as he did in Super Danganronpa 2, trying to make it seem as if him and Peko have no connection and that he doesn't want her to act as his hitman anymore. The next scene is between Hajime and Chiaki, and this scene is just adorable to me. I loved it. I think we definitely see how big of an impact Chiaki has on Hajime, because he's obviously very frustrated here about his lack of talent, but Chiaki comforts him, telling him that there's more to life than just talent. The really cool thing to me about this scene and their relationship in this episode is that he uses the same line that she uses to comfort him to comfort Natsume, and in his argument against Juzo. It seems like Chiaki's words really resonated with Hajime a lot more than Tengen's did. I think her words might have almost stopped him from going through with the Izuru Kamakura project. Quite a few of you guys asked what I thought maybe the flowers represented in that scene with Izuru and Naigi in the last Future episode, and I've seen 2 other YouTubers, including Omega Baldwins and Kachalane, state that they think it might actually be representing Chiaki, and I honestly agree with that. I think the possibility of her almost stopping him from going through with this transition is what makes him long for her so much deep down inside as Izuru, and maybe in fact why he planted the flowers. So in a way, I think Hajime thinks of Chiaki as being the last strand of hope that he had of remaining himself, which of course later in the episode he decides to turn down. But in the next scene we see Natsume and Sato fighting again, but this time it's Sato who almost strikes Natsume instead of the other way around. Hajime then stops Sato from striking her, and then after Natsume runs away, Hajime goes to comfort her while Sato stands there going on to herself about her very creepy and obsessive love for Mihiru. Then we have the scene of Hajime comforting Natsume, who expresses why she's so obsessive about transferring into the main course at Hope's Peak Academy. Hajime attempts to use the same words that Chiaki used to comfort her, but it's to no avail. She states that talentless people have no right to be with someone like her brother, which I think hits Hajime really hard about maybe whether or not he has the right to interact with Chiaki as much as he has been. Next, it's revealed that Natsume Kuzuryu is killed, and if you guys haven't guessed already, this episode is going over all the events that we did not see in the Twilight Syndrome murder case in Super Danganronpa 2. And if you played that game, you know that Sato is the one who in fact killed Natsume. Personally, I would have liked to have seen some of the events in Twilight Syndrome murder case take place. The main thing I would have really liked to have seen is how Fuyuhiko killed Sato in this, and I'm sort of hoping that they'll show that in the next episode, along with how this whole thing has affected Mihiru, Sayonji, Mikan, and Ibuki as well. In the next scene, we see Fuyuhiko look at his little sister at the morgue, confirming her death to him, and we also see Peko punching a wall so hard that it makes her bleed. It definitely seems as if Peko is affected by this death pretty hard too, and I think this will lead her into despair as well. Earlier in the episode, she talks to Fuyuhiko about how she wants to protect Natsume as well, and I think the fact that Natsume gets killed will make her feel as if she's failing her duty to both Natsume and Fuyuhiko. And I think once she sees how badly this drives Fuyuhiko into despair, she'll blame herself for it since she believes it's her duty to protect them. Next is the scene with Sato and Mihiru, where Sato just lies and lies and lies and lies to Mihiru, and then once Mihiru leaves, Hajime calls her out on it, leading her to some sort of temper tantrum and showing more and more of her crazy in this episode. Later, the episode reveals that she has also died as well. And after that, we have this very important scene between Juzo and Hajime, where Juzo reveals that he is the man in charge of Hope's Peak Academy's security. In this scene, Juzo tells Hajime all sorts of messed up, horrible things, that all lives don't matter equally, and that Reserve Corps students are so easily replaceable, and that it's just a pain whenever one of them dies. They eventually get into a fist fight, and Hajime tries to use Chiaki's words to combat him, saying that talent doesn't mean everything, and Juzo basically just throws it back in his face, saying that he shouldn't feel special for hanging out with the main course students, and saying that if you have time to envy the talented, use that time to live like a gear in the machine. Chisa thankfully eventually stops him, and then later her and Juzo have a conversation about how they're both trying to help Munakata spy on Hope's Peak Academy. Juzo also reveals in the scene that he was trying to protect Hajime from learning too much, thinking that if he did learn about the dark side of Hope's Peak Academy, that he would end up dead. I definitely think that Juzo's intentions were good here, but the way that he went about it was just terribly wrong, especially since it seems as if this conversation and this fight that he has with Juzo was the final nailing point for him to accept the Izuru Kamakura project. Next, we see Hajime and Chiaki interact again, and Chiaki asks if Hajime wants to hang out with her, while Hajime refuses, saying that he has something to do, which of course we can all assume is him going to accept the Izuru Kamakura project. I sort of wonder if Hajime will continue hanging out with Chiaki after this, because I do think that the words of Natsume saying that people like them don't deserve to be around people like Fuyuhiko and Chiaki, and Juzo mocking him saying that he thinks he's so special for hanging out with main course students really affected him, and I think it might have been a really big reason as to why he decided to go through with the Izuru Kamakura project, so that he felt as if he could be good enough to hang out with people like Chiaki who have talents. He says that I'll see her later, but I'm not really sure if he completely means that, and it makes me worry that Chiaki will go to the water fountain every day to meet up with him and he'll just stop showing up, or maybe maybe even at some point he'll show up as Izuru. He leaves thinking to himself, I wanted to be able to say to you, my friend with pride, I have a talent, I can do this incredible thing. In the end, I couldn't do anything though, but because of my emptiness, there are things I can do. So I do feel like this line reinforces the fact that I don't think he believed he was good enough to be friends with a super high school level student like Chiaki. And then we finally see Hajime accepting the Izuru Kamakura project at the end of the episode. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I think I did see some people online saying that they thought it was like rushed, but with only 12 episodes to get this whole story out of the way, I think they're doing a really good job of it, because I didn't really feel as if it was rushed because each scene held a lot of information. And although I would have liked to have seen some stuff from the Twilight Syndrome murder case, like how Fihiko kills Sato, which sounds really sick now that I'm saying that out loud, but I do understand why they didn't add that in, since they do have a lot more stuff to cover in the next episodes. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'd love to hear your comments and your opinions on this episode as well, and I will see you real soon. I'm not blue. Oh wait, is that her? Yes! Yes! Finally, a face! Not a blue person. Oh, no way! No way. God, his eyes are freaky. I never noticed that before. The color of blood. Hot pink.
Subscribe to Weeby News for more hope-filled videos.